So, Kendrick Lamar has finally released his latest record, GNX. So, Kendrick Lamar doesn't really need that much of an introduction. This man has one of the most innovative and just unique discographies of all time, ranging from Good Kid, Mad City to Pimp a Butterfly, Damn, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Like, he has a bunch of albums and underrated albums like Untitled, Unmastered, Section 82, and it's just like a discography just keeps on growing, and he really takes his time when crafting new projects. However, this year he kind of went full on ballistic mode and decided to go on a whole beef with Drake, initiating the war with the track Like That with Future, which sparked this whole debate of who's really in the big three or who's the best out of the big three, sparking competition with J. Cole and Drake, then having that kind of back to back feud. J. Cole kind of just leaving from the beef despite that uh, 12-minute drill song. I think it was 12-minute drill, which then he kind of took back. And he just deleted it from Might Delete Later, which is one of the funniest things I've ever seen a rapper do. But he kind of withdrew from the beef, and then it was just him. Then it was just like Drake and Kendrick, and they were duking it out for an entire week, probably a bit more. And we got one of the most iconic rap beefs in recent memory, probably the most iconic one to now. I mean, so many just great songs came from it, especially in Kendrick's side. And just, I don't want to throw around the bias of Drake or Kendrick or whatever, but something that can be objectively said is that Kendrick, without a doubt, had the most successful just conclusion out of this entire beef. Not Like Us being one of the most streamed songs of the year and of the decade, already breaking chart topping records. It's a feud that sparked a lot of debates of who's in the top three, who's the GOAT, who's really this, and Kendrick really stood on business in the beef. And again, he really capitalized upon the success from the beef before diss tracks thrown in there, and then a whole concert that he did during the summer, which he brought the entire West Coast and unified. He really unified the West Coast on a small concert that was streamed through Amazon. It was hosted in California. It was something that was big. It really unified hip hop, especially the West Coast. He brought a bunch of well-known artists like Tyler Creator, YG, and other well-known acts. Even Black Hippie. He reunited with Black Hippie in that concert, which is genuinely insane. And it just showed that Kendrick kind of had this kind of wish to like unify the West Coast and do something for the West Coast. And well, it seems that that concert wasn't the last thing he had in store for the West Coast. In fact, he released a new record called GNX, out of the blue actually. So just in the middle of the day, actually today, he just decided, you know what, screw it. Let me just release a teaser in which I literally thought this was going to be a car commercial because I think GNX is like a type of car, or is a car, and just like the whole minute, it looks like he's just like previewing a new song, but like with a car. And I was like, oh, it looks like a little car commercial or some music video he has cooking up. But no, this guy like 5 or 10 minutes later decides to casually throw an entire record, a whole 12 new tracks, 44 minutes worth of runtime. And apparently the record label didn't even know about this because the label just figured it out the same time we did. So there's just so much chaos going on and emerging just from this drop alone, which just came out right out of the blue. And this is probably the best surprise I've seen in a long time, probably since like the Tyler Creator album, which isn't that long ago, obviously, but it does feel kind of long ago, at least for me personally. But man, I'm just so happy we got a new Kendrick album. I wasn't expecting this thing at all. I knew he was kind of building up something, maybe a potential project, but for it to come this quick and this soon says a lot. I thought we were probably gonna get it like maybe a couple of months after the Super Bowl, like he did with Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers when he performed the Super Bowl. But it seems that he just said, screw it, let's throw the record now. And I kind of see the move because I think he wants to maybe foster some attention with this record, maybe sing some hits, some potential hits he can get from his album for the Super Bowl, since it's going to be headlining the Super Bowl. I think, is it in February or in January, one of those months. But yeah, it's very interesting marketing tactic and just like release tactic in general. But anyway, let's talk about the content on this record alone. Again, it's 12 tracks, 44 minutes of runtime, kind of slim for a Kendrick record, even though it's on average it's maybe like 50 minutes, if not an hour long. And I was very curious as to what is he gonna offer, and he really offered a lot. The opening track, Whacked Out Murals, I don't know if I pronounce it whacked or west, Whacked Out Murals, yeah, I think it's called. This man starts off with a sample of this woman singing in Spanish, which is sort of a reoccurring theme throughout the record. We kind of hear this woman singing in Spanish occasionally during the record, kind of saying this ominous, kind of like insecure, dark vibe where like you just don't know. There's like so much like uncertainty that's being built up. And it kind of sets up this theme of him being a boogeyman because in this track he embraces this like persona of you don't want to mess with me. I am this very like just loud and aggressive animal, which was something that was showcased and he really embraced throughout his series of diss tracks against Drake. And in this song, Kendrick is embodying this persona in which he is standing on business basically, and he's basically saying, "Hey, you really gotta kill a bunch of, you gotta kill, some people. You gotta have some sins in order to be recognized as something, as a goat." Or someone to be feared among, not to mess with, basically. And Kendrick seems to be very pissed off on this track, and it seems that the whole Drake beef, I mean, obviously it was kind of born out of hatred, out of like just bottled up hatred that Kendrick had against Drake, but it's something that he had just for the industry alone with a bunch of other rappers. In this track, again, he's energy. He's kind of channeling this aggressive energy. This like I'm like everybody's almost my enemy, or I feel like a lone wolf type. And I think in this track, he also mentions briefly the Super Bowl controversy, in which Lil Wayne criticized Kendrick for having the opportunity of headlining instead of him, kind of saying that he got appreciation. Like Wayne kind of seems bitter because I'm doing the hard work that I should be getting praised of, and like Nas was like the only one who congratulated me. And he also kind of goes on to say the Snoop Dogg thing, which Snoop Dogg kind of showed love to Drake with the Taylor Made freestyle, which is AI generated Tupac verses, which is a bunch of other, it's another controversy. And he kind of does like this funny line of like, Snoop Dogg must have been the edible when he reposted that. And it's funny because Snoop Dogg responded actually an hour ago, I think, with a Instagram post, I think, saying that yeah, he was off the edible, kind of just laughing it off. And I thought that was kind of cool. Like at first I thought it was like an actual diss line, but it seems like he was just kind of like being playful with it. And I'm glad that Snoop kind of played along with it. But I'm very interested. I was very interested with this track because how it's performed and how it's just orchestrated, like just the strings that are surrounding Kendrick, the verse, like just like the oomph that you hear with the beat, kind of like the setup that's going around. It's like you personally feel like just like goosebumps going around. And what I love about the song is that when I was listening to it, this literally like sounded like a UFC type song, where it's like everybody like the only one like everybody fears you, like you're just like force that cannot be reckoned with, like you are indestructible. And I think he says a line there where it's like when nobody believes you're God, like you just like tell everybody to screw off. It's like you got to believe yourself that you're like the superior being among everybody else. It might sound corny, but the way that he delivered was felt so motivational, and has this like theme that carries around the record of like you have to be this indestructible force regardless of what anybody says. You have to tell yourself that you're this strong force, and you gotta prove it to everybody. The track "Squabble Up" is a continuation of that one snippet that you might have heard from "Not Like Us" music video in the intro. A lot of people were going crazy with that snippet. I was too. Like, and it was a song that already had a whole dance in TikTok, and I was like, imagine this song comes out, like the hopes were like this low because he previewed his song in the All Right music video and never came out because he lost a file to it. But it seems that he was just that serious, and it was a whole preview. And wow, this entire song is phenomenal. It's bouncy as hell. It's fun. It's catchy. He's having this West Coast type of vibe and just slang thrown around the entire track. And it just feels dance worthy. It genuinely feels. If Not Like Us was dance worthy, this thing is probably even more dance worthy. But yeah, it's once again just Kendrick just standing on business, saying, kind of repeating the same thing that he said in the first track of just like, you have to be aggressive. You have to be violent for sometimes to get the message around. And overall on this album, it has like that topic of like you kind of have to get your hands dirty if you want to get the recognition you want and respect you deserve, and to not be played or toyed around with, and to like just be seen as an actual force to be reckoned with, which is very funny because it's complete. It's a 180 shift from Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, where he feels much more reserved and kind of in his zone, kind of contemplating, meditating over his past issues, feeling like a much more calm and reserved person, avoiding any beef or drama and situation. Whereas in this record, obviously kind of like provoked because of the Drake beef, it's a complete opposite. He is hungry. He is like going in for the kill, and he wants everybody to know that he is someone that you should respect regardless, because he is going to go after your neck. Despite the more quote-unquote dumbed down version of Kendrick, in which he does kind of state throughout the record that he, has to dumb it down, or he's dumbing it down, but he's still kind of like, rapping his ass off. He still has some very like introspective or like more narrative focused tracks. I thought the track Man at the Garden was a very self-reflective song, really going into detail as to why he deserves the GOAT status, or why he should be even mentioned as a GOAT, and kind of like setting up this hope that his kids, and his son and his daughter, will be like even superior versions of himself in a more, I guess, human or spiritual way. Kind of setting up as like being the better versions of him, which is once again one of the themes of Mr. Morale, with him kind of like as a father figure, wanting his kids to grow up and become a much more successful and superior version of him, not make the same mistakes that he did, and kind of wishing for the best. And just throughout this track alone, it's very cinematic. Kind of how like the build up for this song is grandiose. Really, this feels like kind of like low, kind of melancholy, kind of like whisperish, until like it blows up in the final half with these very like just loud strings, and Kendrick just going rapping his ass off, feeling aggressive and feeling angry, and it just creates this moment of just distortion, pure chaos for a split second. The track Reincarnated is this very clever track in which Kendrick kind of just plays both sides in terms of like narrating from the point of view of God and also the Satan, I believe. And it's a metaphor, kind of Kendrick kind of placing himself like in Satan's shoes, basically saying that he feels like a fallen angel, in the sense that he is kind of regretting the things that he did in the past, more the sins that he has committed throughout his career and throughout his life, and wanting to seek retribution, wanting to seek sort of a redemption arc throughout his life, kind of like talking to God, going back and forth, God judging him, and him vowing to never repeat the mistakes that he did, use his gifts for the good, and trying to have this sort of revelation throughout his whole persona and character. And I find it to be very interesting, just the way that he just perfectly plays that sort of perspective, like almost like a devil or a demon, of like, I feel guilty of the things that I've committed, and I am willing to admit that not only did I mess up, which again Mr. Morale was all about his past issues and how he's growing as a human being. And I think at this one he's kind of like he's kind of solidifying that retribution arc of redemption arc that he kind of laid out in Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, but I guess being a bit more fine-tuned with his religious beliefs as well. Another more introspective track was A Heart Part 6, in which Kendrick details his journey with TDE, the origins, the come up, how Absol, Schoolboy Q, his other conglomerates, his ex-conglomerates, since he's not a part of TDE anymore, really helped and raised him become who he is. He was at once a novice who needed guidance, and people like J-Rock, Schoolboy Q, Absol, other people from TDE really helped him step up. And without them, Kendrick wouldn't be at the place where he was right now. And it's very interesting because he has one of the lines where he says that Black Hippie didn't work out mainly because of him, because the creative differences that he had with the group. And it shows that Kendrick was willing to risk a lot in exchange for his creativity and his own personal solo effort. Despite it not being as conceptually mind-blowing as A Heart Part 5, I think it offers a very nice, like, sort of like personal storyline in which you kind of see Kendrick kind of paying his respects to the people who made him who he is today. There's some bars in which he's talking about abandoning his family business, kind of separating his family business to go take music more seriously and to develop it into a career, passion, seeing just the risk that he took just to be where he's at right now. It's kind of a celebration of the past and how it paid off in the long term. I will say that despite the magnificent highs this record shares, it has its occasional lows. It's obviously far from being like a perfect masterpiece or whatever. It has some songs that I just feel a little bit indifferent with. I wasn't a huge fan of the self-titled track GNX. I generally felt that it was like just very messy. It's trying to be a pause cut with a bunch of other rappers from California, I suppose, in which Kendrick is trying to shed a light on them, and he does it throughout the record. There's some occasional hidden features throughout here, and I think there's a whole list of the bunch of rappers who are featured in here. There's a lot more like unknown rappers that I think are from California that Kendrick again wanted to like show some more exposure to, which is very cool. And I think he did that too with the Amazon concert. But returning to the track, I kind of felt that it was messy, mainly because it was a track that just wanted to do something big. It wanted to do this sort of like California pause cut, but everything just felt so clumsy and just felt so out of place. And I think Kendrick feels weird and off in this song. Doesn't offer it enough to make this song stand on its own, especially the features. I didn't think the features were that special. They kind of felt a bit loose. And just like they weren't properly directed in what they needed to be and where they needed to go specifically. Kendrick is known for being like very like just experimental and very like just like playing with his voice, and he has this very funny like just peekaboo like remarks and stuff as like trying to play it as like the boogeyman and things, but it just comes out as a bit strange and a bit messy. It's not like Range Brothers with Baby Keem, in which he's like, he's being goofy on purpose and it works out because Keem and him match the chemistry. They're cousins and stuff. They kind of know each other more, if anything. I think this song kind of comes out a bit awkward because the hook and chorus does not go along with the song. Kind of feels annoying, kind of feels a bit stiff. The feature does a cool job, I guess, but I think it's too late to salvage a song. It just feels a bit all over the place. I don't think it makes for a great listen. Last song from the more underwhelming cuts is Dodger Blue. It's much better than the two other songs, but I feel that it's more of an interlude, if anything, than its own song. I think the singing and the beat and everything, it feels smooth, it feels refreshing, but it's just not as exciting as the other cuts that are featured in this record. Tracks like Hey Now and TV Off are some of the most spectacular and just like hype anthem like moments this record has as well. And I think in just Kendrick's discography, especially TV Off, with just how loud and just orchestral the entire track is, Mustard does a phenomenal job with the beat switch up, these huge strings just surround Kendrick, this loud 808 that just surrounds the entire track. And I think it's even funnier with Kendrick just screaming his lungs out saying Mustard. And it's just like one of the funniest things he's ever done in a song. And I think like it's such a playful and fun song that it's like destined to get like a bunch of streams for me alone, because it is so memorable. The performance is phenomenal, and Kendrick is just being very loose in this song, just speaking his truth on this song. Really, I think the track "Hey Now" is also very playful and fun. It's, West Coast bop, just like the other songs that I mentioned that were very West Coast. Like this entire record is really West Coast, but I think of this song in particular, it was like it's banging. And speaking about like just features, I was mind blown when I heard SZA featured not once but twice in this record. I was like a dream come true type of collab. They've obviously collabed in the past, but I did not expect they were going to collab in this record twice. Generally, the two songs are great. I really liked Luther. It was a bit of an unexpected twist from the first two chaotic and very fun songs, but it was a nice kind of smooth track. It's embellished with once again strings, and a very groovy, nice sort of R&B slash pop type beat. And I think SZA is really just a star in this song. She just sings her ass off in here. It feels like just Kendrick is a bit more meditative in this song, kind of aiming more for more smooth and just nicer in the ears experience from the chaotic first two tracks that are just again in your ears and in your face, bass boosted type of song. I think the outro song Gloria is a very nice just wrap up for the entire just journey that there is already built up in its 12 tracks. Kendrick and SZA kind of going around like this like relationship type roles. Kendrick kind of like playing this role of this guy who's trying to win over this girl, and them having their differences, but in the end kind of coming together and mentioning and just emphasizing as to why this person is very important to him and why she's like his everything. And I think a song like this is a great outro to the entire record, despite it not being the chaotic, West Coast finale we all might have been anticipating. It's still very nice, light on the ears type of outro. It's definitely going to be one of those songs that'll be more mainstream. It definitely kind of fits that sort of like appeal that you might have heard like in a Black Panther soundtrack, if anything. Overall, this record delivers a handful of songs, and despite it maybe not being like the conceptual roller coaster that a Kendrick Lamar album typically is, especially kind of having this departure from Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, stepping away, kind of him being much more aggressive, much more straightforward, and again, not as lyrically as meticulously crafted as meticulously as he would be again on a song like Mr. Morale or just his previous records where he's much more conceptually based. I still think this record is great. It offers a great amount of bops. It's something that was made with the intention of having a lot of replay value, being played in stadiums, which makes sense as to why he released this record a couple months before his Super Bowl headline show. I think I heard rumors that he wanted to do like a tour and like more stadium based shows. But yeah, Kendrick basically made this thing as sort of a little like short passion project, capitalizing off of this global success that he had with the beef against Drake. And I don't see anything wrong with it. I think this is a great victory lap record. Sure, it might not be as nearly as polished and well done as his previous records, but as a victory lap album that kind of seems like it was cooked up probably over the summer or over like the span of the beef, this is something that this is pretty crazy. It's great. I mean, for the short period of time that it's probably made, it's impressive, and I think it's supposed to just satisfy us for the meantime for a couple more months until we might potentially get a more conceptually grounded record. Maybe. It's a huge maybe. I don't know. This kind of came out of the blue. I'm still processing so many things that has happened. But yeah, again, this record is great. I think Kendrick killed it with this album. And in terms of rating, I might give this album an 8 out of 10 ish. It's really great. I think it's going to stick with me for a while, and it's definitely going to have a lot of replay value from me. So what you guys think about this record? Should you guys love it? Should you guys hate it? Let me know in comments down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to notification bell on so you miss an upload from me. And yeah, peace out everybody, and stream GNX.